Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. Just saw the movie Summer Camp. Diane Keaton, Kathy Bates, and Woodward. Am I saying her name right? Three ladies who are kind of reliving their youth as young girls, 12, 14-year-old girls. They met at this summer camp. And they're kind of rebooting their youth. Kathy Bates, her character, Ginny Moon, formerly Jennifer Moskowitz, has become like a self-help guru, and she initiates this reunion with her friends and so forth. Should you see the movie? Should you not? It's a harmless movie. If it was Mother's Day, you could take your mom. It's a pleasant movie, but it's not essential. It's like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Now I'm going to get into the spoilers presentation of our show, where I give away scenes and plot points. So if you think you want to see this movie and you're like, gee whiz, I don't want this asshole to ruin all the wonderful scenes, then the thing to do is to watch my review and then come back after. Now I'm going to put my thinking cap back on. This is like my gimmick. I don't know. It's nice when the sun's out, because it's not as intricate as a hat. Like a hat, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know if I like it, to tell you the truth. I feel like I should be preaching something or handing out flowers in the airport. But in any event, let's talk about this movie. Why did I not like it as much as I thought I might? Or why was I not terribly impressed? I'll get into the dirty details. It felt like a movie where whoever directed this thing did not feel confident in directing the actors. And it seems like a lot of scenes that probably had very finely written dialogue and like the actual script, it felt like the actors were ignoring the actual script. I felt that way the whole time watching the movie. It seemed like a lot of scenes were just off balance with the structure of the individual scenes, and then they kind of got rushed out, and then we're off to something else. And some of the conflicts and stuff. There's a scene I could point out. Eugene Levy's character, Eugene Levy, kind of going against type. Suddenly he's the Richard Gere of this world in this movie. But Eugene Levy is giving a lecture to the Diane Keaton character about not being a workaholic, and how, he once had a heart attack and he woke up and he was all alone in the hospital bed, and he realized he should retire and with all his money and just, enjoy life and hang out with his son and all this horse shit. And while he's giving this whole big, long speech, Diane Keaton is just, like she's kind of stepping on his fucking lines with her yas and huns and and she's really kind of, in my opinion, as great an actress as Diane Keaton is, okay, but this is not a great scene for her, because it looks like she's trying to steal the fucking moment from Eugene Levy, I'm telling you. So as experienced as these actors are, as great as they fucking are, you still have to direct them, okay? You can't let these movie stars, whoever the fuck directed this thing, probably some big goddamn director, but you can't just let the movie stars crush you and do whatever they want. And then, so that scene, it was just like, Diane, shh, let Levy speak, okay? Then the end credits of the movie come, and this is a sign of hackdom, in my opinion, and I hate when movies do this. And a lot of times you see this with, like, things, if you've ever been to a 48-hour film festival or some type of independent movie or low-budget, skit movie or whatever the fuck, let's put our bloopers at the end credits. We'll have the scrolling end credits, and here's our bloopers scene. So whenever I see these movies that have the bloopers, to me, it's like you're basically admitting defeat. Hey, fine movie audience, we didn't give you enough movie. We didn't really satisfy your need for a good movie here. So here's a serving of shit. Here's a serving of dog shit scenes and outtakes and bloopers and things that didn't make the movie cut. But because we don't think we really made that great of a movie, we have to give you the blooper reel at the end. so it's a make good, and it's just dumb. So to me, it's a cop out. It's a horse shit move. It's a hack move. And here it is in this big time, movie. What else can I say? I'll be honest, just as a funny aside, okay? The most shocking revelation for me at this movie when it ended was I was like, oh, that wasn't Viola Davis. The whole time I thought I was watching Viola Davis, and I was like, when did Viola Davis get into the senior citizen lane of this movie making industry? Because she's been such a wonderful actress, isn't she like, what's that thing, a GOTA or a GETA, whatever the fuck, when you have like Grammy, Oscar, Tony, and what's the other one, Emmy? So I think she's one of those, good for her. And but it wasn't Viola Davis, it was Onfrey Woodard, which is Onfrey Woodard, if you don't know, she really was like one of those top 90s actresses. I think she was in the movie Grand Canyon ever so long ago. Nice movie, Kevin Kline, Steve Martin. This she's here, but I don't know. The whole point of the movie, or there's a few, but basically this Kathy Bates character is like a year or two older than the other ones, and she's always kind of dominated, like she's always been the dominant friend. So even, 40 years on into their friendship, she's still kind of dominating them. She doesn't approve of Onfrey Woodard's character's husband, which was an interesting conflict, which I think that ended on a hanging Chad. I think that the conflict, because one of the B stories here is Onfrey Woodard going to leave her piece of shit husband who just watches TV and doesn't care about her needs? Is she going to leave him for the smooth guy from the Allstate commercials? I think he was on the show 24. I never know his name, but just like the big tall guy. And, and so she's got her, fucking panties moist for him, but is she going to leave her piece of crap husband for him? Well, we never find out, because the movie just kind of ends, and that's just a hanging Chad. You know what I mean? That's another thing. When you have these movies that, like, okay, that seemed like a pretty big storyline. What happens with Onfrey and her fucking husband? Is she going to leave him? Is she going to cheat on him with this dude, the smooth operator? What is happening here? But we don't find out. We don't get to find out. Also, I don't know. There was a pretty good little dramatic scene with the Kathy Bates character kind of lights in, or talks some smack to this poor kid, like this 25 or 30-year-old kid who works at the camp, and she gives him a hard time, and then he says, "You hurt my feelings." And then she feels like shit. So it's like, okay, it would be nice to see like an apology scene, or how is she going to reconcile this? Like, she's supposed to be this self-help guru, and her mantra is get your shit straight, yet she's just hurt this poor young man's feelings. So she has this big epiphany that, maybe as a bully of everyone's lives, she's not that great of a person as she thought she was, and she has no husband and no kids. So, of course, that means she's empty inside. So, instead of, like, having a good moment where she reconciles with the camp kid, she just exposition, like the second to last scene in the movie, she's like, oh yeah, I hired him to be my social media manager. So that's how they taped up that. But they couldn't tape up what happened with Onfrey Woodard and the Allstate guy, which I think was more important, folks. What else? Like I said, a lot of these scenes, Diane Keaton was kind of like on a 12. You know what I mean? Like, look, Annie, she was the original. If you don't know the fucking movie Annie Hall, Diane Keaton was like the original, what do they call that? The pixie dream girl, the manic pixie dream girl. You saw Natalie Portman in Garden State. That's a term that people use for like the whimsical chick with like a 1,000 piercings and earrings, and, and she's got insights, and yet, whatever the fuck. So, Diane Keaton was kind of like the original that, okay? And all she did was like wear hats and men's sport coats. But now, we've kind of seen her do this now for a long time, where she's played, I think going back to 1999, she was in this movie, As Good as It Gets, with Jack Nicholson, and she was playing the mother of another character. I think by the actress, at the time she was a big deal, and she kind of, Amanda Peet, whatever the fuck happened to Amanda Peet? Like, Amanda Peet was like a big deal for like 5 years, and now where the hell is she? She's probably on some Netflix series that I don't watch that you do. So hashtag Amanda Peet, where did you go? You know, back in the 90s. But yeah, Diane Keaton's been playing like kind of the older, you know, aging manic pixie girl for like 30 years now. So I mean, she does a good job with it. Like she's always just fucking Diane Keaton, which is fine. You know what I mean? And even at the beginning of the movie, when they show the younger versions of these characters, and like the first one we meet is basically the Diane Keaton youth version, like the 12-year-old Diane Keaton, and she has like the long fucking brown hair, the straight long brown hair. I think she was even wearing a hat and glasses, and it's like immediately recognizable, like, oh, cute, that's like the 12-year-old Diane Keaton, you know, because she's distinctive. Even the Jenny Moskowitz, who's like 14 or 15, she's like kind of talking. The actress did a good job of kind of like emulating a Kathy Bates accent, like a kind of a, I don't know, is it New Jersey or Indiana or some such thing? Like Kathy Bates has this kind of distinctive kind of Southern voice, kind of not, and this young actress did a nice job emulating that. I did feel like the Onfrey Woodard character kind of got lost in the sauce. Also, there was another group of women, which I think they could have done more with. They called them, in their youth, their childhood, they called them the Pretty Committee. And they're kind of like the rivals to these three, which whatever they... See, they didn't even have like a group name. You know what I mean? Unless I'm forgetting something. I don't think these three characters, they kept saying, we're friends. But they should have like had a fucking friendship name. Like, don't women do that? Don't they give each other, like, don't they give their friendships a name? So there was no group name or the Three Musketeers or whatever the fucks, but they had a name for the girls that they didn't like, the fucking Pretty Committee. So I'm like, why don't you guys have a fucking name? Yeah, because they should, because it's a movie. It'd be dramatic. And I found myself doing that a lot with this movie. Like, oh, they should have done this. They should have done that. I just feel like I feel like whoever directed this thing, whether they're, you know, Academy Award winner or just some asshole, you know, Adam Sandler's nephew. I was once in a fucking extra in a goddamn movie that the big deal was that Adam Sandler's nephew was directing. And, you know, it was like a fucking David Spade comedy that nobody saw. And the guy was just the Sandler's nephew, which I think is on his resume. He kept like making us do this shot over and over again of basically guy in jacket walks by. Okay. We had to keep doing this because I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Sandler's nephew needs to let everyone know that he's such a great director. We're not going to leave here until the guy in the jacket walks by perfectly. It's like, okay, buddy, at the end of the day, you're Sandler's nephew. We get it, okay? So anyway, going back to this thing, it felt like whoever directed this thing was just letting these actors do whatever the fuck they want. There's plenty of scenes, if you look at this thing, if I went through with a fucking pointer, I could point them all out, where it just feels like, oh yeah, that line was probably improvised. They probably dropped a line here or there. This scene is not terribly tight. You know, it just feels like it's kind of loose. And then when you see the bloopers at the end of the movie, you see some evidence of that. You see, I think, you know, Kathy Bates was struggling to remember something, and they're all just kind of giggling. It seems like, once again, this is the type of movie where the cast and the crew had a wonderful time. They went to some summer camp in North Carolina, which is nice to see. North Carolina has a movie, you know, that was filmed there. But they just, you know, they just kind of, I don't want to say half-assed it, but they had more fun probably behind the scenes than I did watching it. Now, as a counter appeal, there was in this theater, actually two groups in this auditorium tonight. One group seemed to be like older teenagers, and they were giggling along, even though these characters were much older than these audience members. And then there was a group of what you might nicely call like a little friendship group, like three, I think it was three elderly women, you know, gray-haired ladies kind of going into the theater, and they fucking loved it. Like at the end of the movie, like one of them was like, oh, that was so good, and they were so happy. Then I think that part of that is, you know, they can, their own lives. I mean, those three women probably had a more interesting life in them than this movie, but they could relate to it, and they probably just like seeing all their favorite, you know, characters on the screen and all that shit. What else? Oh, here's a big thing. This was actually my first thing about this movie I didn't like. There's a camp, Nicole Richie, for Christ's sakes. Nicole Richie's in this thing as like the leader of the camp. I thought they were going to do a thing with this movie where the camp was running out of money, and I guess, you know, my patriarchy self was thinking, oh, maybe the Eugene Levy character can like swoop in and buy the summer camp, and now his life has fucking direction again because he's been retired for 15 years, and then maybe Diane Keaton can move in with him, and they can be like, they could couple up and run this summer camp together, or whatever the fuck. But, or, you know, you could say, well, maybe the Ginny Moon character, you know, buys, I mean, she's such a millionaire with all her best-selling books, as we hear. She could buy the camp and, like, you know, name it after their friendship group. Like Camp, you know, Musketeers, or whatever the fucks. But they didn't establish the female friends having a fucking name, and they didn't have, the camp was not in peril. And I'm like, why isn't the camp in peril? Every time you see a summer camp, the camp has to be in peril of going out of business. That's the whole point, because somebody has to save it. But no, we're just talking about relationships in this one. We never find out, I believe the character was Tommy that the Allstate guy played, and Humphrey Woodard's character, because as children they were kind of like flirting and checking each other out and all this horse shit. And the Diane Keaton character accidentally shot a fucking arrow to this kid when he was 12. And then the Humphrey Woodard character, like, you know, glued him up with super glue. That's cute. We never saw that little romantic moment when they were kids. And we never find out, well, why didn't you two just pair off? Like, they should have had, like, one of those little expository scenes of dialogue. Why didn't it work out between us? Well, you were moving to the West Coast, and I was staying here on the East Coast. Just some horse shit. It's not that fucking hard. Fill in some gaps, assholes. You know what I mean? It's like if Humphrey Woodard was always supposed to be with Tommy, this stud, and she settled for, the character's name is Mike, her husband. She settled for Mike, the asshole. Why don't we know this? You know what I mean? Did she get pregnant and with Mike's baby? She wasn't expecting to, and blah, blah, blah. Did they have a fight? You know, did their families move in different directions? What happened? That this wonderful chemistry between the Allstate guy and Humphrey Woodard, not Viola Davis, why don't we know why they didn't work out? We should, because it's a movie and we're paying our money to get our dramatic payoffs here. So, I mean, like I said, it's just, you had all these elements in place. You had this wonderful cast. You had all this built-up history between the audience, me, and the characters, the actors, all these things that we've earned, yet we're not sticking the landing here, okay? So, like I said, and I just do feel that the screenplay, which I don't even have in my hand, I just felt like they probably didn't do a lot of the script. Like, they just fucking went on set, everyone was laughing and having so much fun, and the actors didn't really memorize these scenes, and so they probably just kind of, you know, did like 60 or 70% of the dialogue and thought that was good enough, and the director's like, oh, great, whatever they do is fantastic, because the director was probably intimidated by the talent and didn't really want to direct them. In other words, was intimidated to tell them to do another take or to help them get their lines down, because I'm telling you, I mean, maybe I'm giving the goddamn script too much credit. Maybe the script sucks too. Who knows? You know what I mean? But it just felt like there was some loose nuts in this thing. Like, just, it felt like a rough draft, like a 4-track instead of a finely mastered master tape, okay? So that's my grievance and so forth. We don't find out what happens with Humphrey Woodard. We don't find out if Eugene Levy's character, oh yes, suddenly Eugene Levy is this goddamn stud. Okay, got the memo. Actually, I didn't. I mean, why couldn't they drag out Richard Gere's fucking ass? You know what I mean? But that's fine. I mean, it's all great. But, you know, oh, god damn it. The person, they had a fucking, the assistant camp counselor was doing a Chris Farley impersonation, like doing Matt Foley from Down by the River. That was her whole, it was a female, and she's playing, you know, maybe 20, 25, maybe 30, I don't know. But whoever, the actor was like, oh, I'll do Matt Foley Down by the River. I'll do Chris Farley. Okay. So it just didn't work. It wasn't funny. MikeMessier.com. Go to my website, scroll to the bottom, stand me on social, buy my books, subscribe to everything I do.